I did something embarrassing today at Texas Roadhouse.
What'd you do?
So for the listeners, we always get food before we record. And today, we got Texas Roadhouse. And I haven't eaten anything all day. And because I didn't have a chance to. And when I got out of Texas Roadhouse, I thought I was in the clear. And I shoved an entire Texas Roadhouse roll in my mouth. And when I turned my head to back out, there was a girl in the car next to me watching me. And we made eye contact. And she started laughing at me.
That's pretty funny.
I really just the biggest roll I could get my hands on and just shoved the entire thing in my mouth at once.
I thought there was one missing out of that bag when you got here.
So, yeah. So she knows that one girl that I'll never see again knows that I'm a fiend.
That's funny.
But anyway, we're doing a Fermi Paradox today. So, do you have anything to say before we do?
Yeah, I want to say 3 quick things.
Oh, here we go.
On the last episode, I talked about how I had to do the 3-hour glucose test.
Nope.
I passed it.
Because this episode isn't going to come out until...
Oh, you're right. This is a banked
4 months
episode.
from now. Yeah.
Oh.
So, try again.
Well, if you're listening in 4 months, I passed that blood test. Exciting. Also went to the chocolate festival in Lewisburg, West Virginia. That was really fun. Mm-hmm. It was kind of cold, though. It was snowing and raining the day before. Thankfully, it wasn't snowing when we went, but it was still cold. But we had a lot of fun. If you've never been to the chocolate festival, I recommend it. Have you been?
No.
It's cool. And also, today, which you won't be hearing this timely, there was a solar eclipse today. That was really cool, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay.
Lots of good stuff happening.
Give us 5 stars on whoever you're listening to us on.
This is a maternity leave episode.
Yeah. It's
being recorded well in advance.
Mm-hmm. A fishing trip episode. And also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Country Roads Creeps. And by the way, I guess this won't come out until long after I'm saying this. Not long, but a few months after I say this. But I always I've said this a few episodes ago, but the podcast is growing more than I thought. And so every time we upload an episode, I check the analytic numbers. Every 2 weeks, I kind of check in, and every episode that we do, it does better than the last episodes that we've done.
That's so exciting. People like us.
Just for the record, I have the top 3 spots in our episodes.
Which ones? Probably the Greenbrier, or not the Greenbrier, the Gloria Ramirez one, our first one.
Yeah, our first one, that one is our second or third best performing one.
Yeah.
And then Skinwalkers and Wendigo and Not Deer is kind of a joint episode. Mm-hmm. That one is our best. But then Hannah doesn't know this because she can't look at the numbers, but I'm competing with her on who has the best episodes.
Interesting.
But all of them, I used to think, I think I was telling Hannah after our first couple of episodes, it's oh yeah, we got this many tens of downloads. We're a couple months in and I'm oh, our episode is downloaded by 50 people. That's cool. And then it's 2 days after we upload an episode and we already have 100.
That's pretty cool. Thank you everyone that's listening and supporting.
Yeah.
We appreciate you.
So it's cool. And I wish I always mean to bring this to you and show you our actual numbers off recording, but I always forget. So maybe I'll show you
during our business meeting at the end of this episode.
Yeah. So I don't want to share all the exact numbers. People
don't want to hear that anyway. They want to hear the story you're about to tell.
But that's the end of the episode. I just want to brag. It's a real mini this time. I'm doing Fermi Paradox. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Fermi Paradox is a discrepancy between lack of conclusive evidence of advanced extraterrestrial life and the apparent high likelihood of its existence.
Okay.
This is Country Roads Creeps. You didn't say it.
Yeah, because you didn't do it right.
What do you mean?
You're supposed to give me the cue. This is, and then we say it together.
This is
Country Roads Creeps.
Country Roads Creeps. I thought we were going to be in sync this time.
No, because you didn't even try. And you haven't been trying. You're ruining it.
I'm kind of phoning it in.
Great start.
Thanks. This is
Country Roads Creeps.
This is what's that school where they made that movie about that plane crash?
Marshall?
Yeah. This is Marshall.
No, we are Marshall.
Oh.
You're embarrassing yourself.
Whatever. Yeah, I went to WVU, so I really don't care about Marshall. So, except for that plane crash is very sad and the movie's good, so forget every bad thing I've ever said about Marshall. I will say this. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
The Thunder and Herd sandwich at Tudor's, the only good thing about Marshall.
Okay, I don't know what to say to that.
Hot take from me
Yeah.
today. I love the Thunder and Herd sandwich. It's got have you ever had it? It's got a hash brown it's bacon, egg, and cheese.
I think Dirk gets that one sometimes.
Hash brown in the middle.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think I get the Mountaineer biscuit, usually, or the shaved ham melt.
Sometimes there is only one right answer, and you are consistently, seems like you're trying to not have it.
You just think really highly of yourself.
I think really highly of my choices in life, and Thunder and Herd
This is coming from a man who eats his cheeseburgers with literally only cheese, so
I have
I'm not
ketchup on them
taking
sometimes.
food opinions from you.
I put the French fries on it.
Okay.
So, and also,
did it have ketchup on it?
No.
Then I'm not taking food opinions from you.
Oh my gosh, here we go.
Start the story.
Yeah, next thing you're going to be like, oh, Shane doesn't even eat lettuce. I take the pickles off of my Chick-fil-A sandwiches.
I know.
Yeah, and so this is the most toxic thing about me, almost, is that the Chick-fil-A sandwich is a 2-pickle recipe. I know for a fact because I've eaten my fair share of Chick-fil-A sandwiches.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they put 3 pickles on there and I get upset.
Oh, poor thing.
Yeah, because
your life is so hard.
Take them off anyway. But when I open the sandwich to take them off, and there's 3, my blood pressure,
sad.
My blood pressure rises.
Poor thing.
So there's some people listening to that. They're like, I can't believe he takes the pickles off, and then also like, I can't believe he would get mad over an extra one. He's not even going to eat.
Yeah.
So anyway, are you ready for?
Yep.
Can we start?
Tell me the story.
Okay. Like I said, Fermi Paradox is the discrepancy that we haven't seen aliens, and apparently there's like an extremely high likelihood that there are aliens. So, in a New York Times article, what was that?
I accidentally kicked you. Sorry.
This is the last episode of the podcast, and they won't find out for another 3 months. There's a New York Times article that I think this was from 2015 or 19 that it was quoted that if life is so easy, someone from somewhere must have come calling by now. Meaning that if it's so easy to grow life, then there should have been aliens at some point somewhere that have visited. So, do you know where the Fermi Paradox comes from?
Nope.
Italian-American physicist Enrico Fermi is this guy's name. And his name gets associated with the paradox because in the 1950s, I think actually the 1950, the very first 50s that there was, 1950, he had a conversation with some other physicists, Edward Teller, Herbert York, and Emil Konopinski. And they were going to lunch, and they were talking about like space travel and if it's ever going to be like really possible to travel through space and if there's life on other worlds. And anyway, the conversation goes on to other topics, and they're eating lunch, and Enrico Fermi blurts out, well, where is everybody? And so that's where that problem kind of started. So it's associated with him. There's been some hypotheses put forward to explain the paradox that include like extraterrestrial life is just extremely rare. The lifetime of their civilizations are too short. We're going to get into more details about this later, but there's some other various reasons that we might not see any evidence. So,
okay.
Let's go. So, Fermi wasn't the first person to ask this question, where is everybody, about the alien life. So, it's probably been asked like ever since there was a night sky for people to look up at, or since there were people to look up at a night sky. Probably people thinking like, well, is there somebody else out there who's like me, who is looking into their night sky thinking there might be somebody that's there,
Yeah.
So that's a really deep question that comes from the Scooby-Doo cartoon movie.
I love Scooby-Doo.
Remember that?
Yeah.
The alien invasion. And where they fall in love, Shaggy and Scooby fall in love with these girls.
Yeah.
And they turn out to be alien, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're like hippies. and it turns out they're aliens. Shouldn't be a spoiler alert. That cartoon movie came out in like 2002. But
remember the one where they meet the Hex Girls?
I have the biggest crush on the Hex Girls.
I loved the Hex Girls episode. It kind of scared me, but I still loved it.
Yeah, I have a gigantic crush on the Hex Girls.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't know if we've mentioned this on the podcast, but the hat that I wear to the gym says "Wear the Goth Chicks" hat.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm sure that this conversation has come up in history, like for years and years and years and years, for all of human history. Where's the aliens? Well, like, if there's somebody else out there, what are they doing? Or where, like, are they able to visit us somehow? So the earliest mention that I see of like a guy actually asking about this, at least in all the articles that I read, was Konstantin Tsiolkovsky in 1933. And he wrote this unpublished paper, I guess just like a journal entry, basically, is my take of it, where he says, people deny the presence of intelligent beings on the planets of the universe because, 1, if such beings exist, they would have visited Earth, and 2, if such civilizations existed, they would have given us some sign of their existence. And most people just kind of take the fact that we haven't been visited or given a sign as the absence of extraterrestrial life. But Tsiolkovsky believed that aliens existed, and he believed in the possibility of space travel. This is in 1933, before people really were thinking about going to space.
Okay.
I guess people have always been thinking about going to space, but before there was like the actual inventions that would get us there. So, Tsiolkovsky proposed the zoo hypothesis. Have you ever heard of that?
I don't think so.
Zoo hypothesis states that alien life intentionally avoids communication with Earth to allow for natural evolution and sociocultural development, and avoiding interplanetary contamination, similar to people observing animals at a zoo.
Okay, that makes sense.
That hypothesis tries to explain the absence of extraterrestrial life despite being generally accepted as a possibility. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a few variants of the zoo hypothesis we're going to kind of get into later. One of them was proposed by John Allen, who was a MIT observatory scientist. And John Allen Ball. His name is separated on another line of my notes. He's a MIT observatory scientist, John Allen Ball. And he says the zoo hypothesis is more like a laboratory where humanity is being subjected to experiments and Earth is just a big lab. So, aliens might choose to allow contact once the human species is past certain technological, political, or ethical standards, or they might withhold contact until humans force contact on the aliens by like sending a spacecraft or accidentally like running into like, hey, we need to talk to you. So anyway, they think that aliens might be reluctant to contact Earth because they might perceive it as like dangerous to them if they contact us first, and then like we'll attack them, which by all means we probably would. So anyway, they don't want to have any added risk to themselves. So the people that kind of criticize the zoo theory or the experiments theory say that it's kind of morbid and grotesque that aliens would be experimenting on us, but I guess the counterpoint to that is they might be kind of altruistic experiments, like they just want to help accelerate our civilization or help us out or keep us from blowing ourselves up. So who knows? But still weird that we might
Hard
be
to say.
Being experimented on. In 1975, Michael H. Hart published a detailed examination of this paradox. He was the first guy to actually do a whole paper on it. And he said that if there was an intelligent extraterrestrial civilization and they're capable of space travel, the galaxy could have been colonized in a time much less than the age of the Earth. But there's no observable evidence that they have been here, which Hart called Fact A.
Okay.
So this lunch conversation, I'm going to go into some detail here. So a bunch of these guys were asked to write letters of their account of this conversation. Edward Teller, I think, wrote the more like accepted one. So he says that Fermi suddenly blurted out, "Where is everybody?" And he writes, the result of his question was general laughter because of the strange fact that in spite of Fermi's question coming out of the blue, everybody around the table seemed to understand that he was talking about extraterrestrial life. And in 1984, one of the other guys in this conversation, York, he writes that Fermi followed up with a series of calculations on the probability of Earth-like planets and the probability of life given an Earth, the probability of humans given life, and the likely rise and duration of high technology, and so on. And he concluded, on the basis of such calculations, that we ought to have been visited long ago and many times over. And Edward Teller remembers that not very much came out of the conversation, except perhaps a statement that distances to the next location of living beings may be very great, and indeed, as far as our galaxy is concerned, we are living somewhere in the sticks, far removed from the metropolitan area of the galactic center. Enrico Fermi died in 1954 of cancer, but his
that's sad.
Conversation has been, this conversation has been like all throughout human history, like I said, but named after him, it's kind of sparked like everybody in this field kind of talks about this stuff. So the first aspect of the Fermi Paradox is it deals with a lot of really large numbers. So like kind of bear with me on this one, but there are an estimated 200 to 400 billion, with a B, stars in the Milky Way, and up to 70 sextillion in the observable universe.
That's just like, you can't even imagine that. Like, you can't
That is
picture that amount.
7 times 10 to the 22nd power in the observable universe of stars. So
Crazy.
Even if intelligent life occurs in only a minuscule percentage of the planets around these stars, there might still be a great number of extant civilizations. And if the percentage were high enough, it would produce a significant number of extant civilizations on the Milky Way. So, in the Milky Way, I did the math here because I'm curious.
You did the math?
I did the math, so you know it's right.
Okay.
And because I used a calculator. If we use the lowest estimation on just like the Milky Way stars, the low number 200 billion stars, and quote minuscule percentage of those, a 1/100th of a percent would still be 20 million civilizations that might exist. And if you go even lower, 1/10,000th of a percent would be 200,000 civilizations.
Wow.
That could possibly exist in the Milky Way galaxy.
Just in our galaxy.
Yeah, just in our universal neighborhood. Now, later, remind me of this, and I'll get into like how big these distances are because they're so hard to quantify, but we'll get a little bit into that. So the second kind of aspect, still sort of dealing with large numbers, but it's more of a probability argument. It kind of says, given intelligent life's ability to overcome scarcity and its tendency to colonize new habitats, seems possible that at least some civilizations would be technologically advanced and seek out new resources in space and colonize their star system and subsequently surrounding star systems. So there's no significant evidence on Earth, anywhere as far as we can tell. But the universe has been around for 13.8 billion years of all time. So you kind of have a conflict there of like, okay, well, it's been around for this amount of time. Even if it takes forever to actually build an intelligent civilization with the technology enough to travel space, they've had the time, right? So this kind of begs the question, like, okay, well, are we just wrong in the assumption that aliens would want to colonize their local systems? Or maybe we're totally wrong about if there's life in other places, or if there even can be life in other places. So our total complete understanding of nature in the universe might be like totally skewed just to here on Earth, and it might not exist this way in other places. So you can ask the Fermi Paradox question kind of two ways. The first is, why are no aliens or their artifacts found on Earth or in the solar system? The second form of the question is, why are there no signs of intelligence anywhere else in the universe? So this guy, Frank Drake, came up with an equation in 1961 in an attempt to find a systematic means to evaluate the probabilities involved with alien life. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. The Drake equation reads, are you ready for this? I'm going to butcher because it's all variable letters. Okay?
Oh gosh. Okay.
So N equals R asterisk times F and a little p times N, a lowercase n, and a little teeny e, times F1 times Fi times Fc times L.
And what does this tell us, this formula?
N is the number of technologically advanced civilizations in the Milky Way galaxy.
Okay.
And that is equal to the product of the R asterisk, which is the rate of formation of stars in the galaxy. F with a little p is the fraction of those stars with planetary systems. NE, the number of planets per solar system with an environment suitable for organic life. F1, or well, I guess it's actually FL, with a little lowercase l. It's hard to read with this font, this typeface. The fraction of those suitable planets where organic life actually does appear. F with a little I, the fraction of those life-bearing planets whereon intelligent life would appear. F with a little c is the fraction of the civilizations that reach a technological level where there might be detectable signs of their existence that can be dispatched, like radio waves, or they're sending stuff out into the universe. And then the capital L is the length of time that those civilizations dispatch their signals. So here's the issue. The problem with this equation is that the last four terms, which are the fraction of life-bearing planets where the actual life appears, or organic life, or intelligent life, and those where they reach a technological level where they can dispatch signals, and the length of time that they send those signals out, it's entirely unknown. So you can't even do like statistical estimates on those. It's like, we haven't discovered a planet yet, go figure, that has even like plant life or organic life. So there's been times before I've seen articles where they write like, there's like, oh,
like something on Mars.
Yeah, like we found a planet with organic life, or there might be microbes, or there might be, there's water on this planet, and it's like, okay, everybody gets really excited, but microbes, I guess technically is life. It doesn't really mean much in the way of like actual organic species being able to exist. I'm going to get into that here in a little bit, but and then the water thing is like, well, there can be water anywhere. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be life. And plus, the ones that they have seen are so far away, in our lifetimes, we would never be able to actually know that information.
Mm-hmm.
Also going to get into that in a little bit. But anyway, so naturally, given that there's the statistical anomalies there where you're dealing with variables and trying to plug in numbers that you don't know for a fact, optimists are going to overestimate the results of that equation, and the pessimists are going to severely underestimate potentially those possibilities. So I'm going to read this directly from the article that I was pulling a lot of this information from. Because it's kind of an interesting little history fact. But the first scientific meeting on the search for extraterrestrial intelligence at SETI had 10 attendees, which included Frank Drake and Carl Sagan, and they speculated that the number of civilizations was roughly between 1,000 and 100 million civilizations in the Milky Way galaxy. It's a far range there.
Yeah.
Conversely, Frank Tipler and John D. Barrow used pessimistic numbers, speculated that the average number of civilizations in a galaxy is much less than one. So, almost all the arguments involving the Drake equation suffer from the overconfidence effect, which is a common error of probabilistic reasoning about low probability events. So you guess specific numbers for likelihoods of events whose mechanism is not yet understood, and the likelihood of abiogenesis on an Earth-like planet, with current likelihood estimates varying over many hundreds of orders of magnitude. An analysis that takes into account some of the uncertainty associated with this lack of understanding has been carried out by Anders Sandberg and Eric Drexler and Toby Ord, and suggests a substantial extent probability of there being no other intelligent life in our observable universe. So you run into the problem where if you just do the math and say like I did before of like, okay, well, there's this many stars. If there's this many planets that could possibly have a life-bearing planet and they have life on them, you could have the potential of, even if you're using 1/10,000th of a percent, you've got 200,000 potential civilizations.
Yeah.
A number of those, a non-zero number of those, might be either technologically advanced or get to be technologically advanced.
Right.
But, well, I mean, we don't know. So, anyway, this episode also covers the Great Filter. Have you ever heard of that?
Maybe.
So,
I couldn't tell you what it is, but it kind of sounds familiar.
The Great Filter is a concept introduced by Robin Hanson in 1996, and it sort of puts a brick wall in the way of any kind of like natural phenomenon or evolutionary phenomenon or technological phenomena that would make it unlikely for life to evolve from inanimate matter to an advanced civilization. So the most commonly agreed upon low probability event is abiogenesis, which is, like I said, where you have microbes on like Mars or something. Well, the probability of those little microbes eventually becoming a person, or even like a multi-cell organism, a worm, for example, or an ant or whatever, even those are so complex, it's extremely unlikely that over the course of millions or billions of years that they would ever form into like a complex life form just because of that evolution. So, there's some other great filter, some other great filters that are proposed, like the emergence of eukaryotic cells, which is like the actual cells with membranes that can do meiosis and stuff, which is kind of what I'm saying, that you need stuff that's able to function in a way that it would be able to form into multi-celled organisms and then be able to work together to build like organs and things that like other cell structures that work together to make an entire body. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's my extremely dumbed down way of saying like it's hard to make life. So
right.
There's astrobiologist Dirk Schulze-Makic and William Baines that they review the history of life on Earth, and they conclude that the transitions like oxygenic photosynthesis, the eukaryotic cells, multicellularity, and tool-using intelligence are likely to occur on any Earth-like planet given enough time. And they argue that the Great Filter may be abiogenesis itself, and the rise of technological human-level intelligence, or an inability to settle other worlds because of self-destruction or lack of resources. So they would say that the reason you're not going to find life on other planets is because it can't start by itself. And if it does, the more likely situation that's going to come out of that is that civilization is going to destroy itself, or there's not going to be enough resources to travel between star systems.
Okay.
So the Fermi Paradox kind of arose out of the issue that we didn't see life anywhere. Not here, not in our solar system, not in our galaxy, not anywhere else in the universe. But it does rely on some evidence to even make the problem work in the first place. And I'm about to make it a little bit worse. So the first evidence that some suitable biological life planets exist was only an assumption in the 50s. So these guys are having this conversation, and they're under the assumption that there's not really any life-bearing planets. Like most stars don't even have planets. But now we know that a vast majority of stars actually have planets. About 94% of them actually have planets. And the number of planets per star is, you want to guess how many planets are around each given star that has planets?
Like average?
Yeah. So like we have 8.
Right. 12.
No. 1.4 per star.
Oh, okay.
So way lower.
We are like a higher average solar system.
Way lower than I thought. Yeah, actually we're number 1.
Oh, like that we know of.
Period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, I don't even know why I said that. That was
So yeah,
of course, the number 1 that we know of.
That led me to Google the maximum of planets around the stars. And there's a wiki article for multi-planetary systems. The stars with the most confirmed planets are the Sun, ours, and Kepler-90 with 8 confirmed planets each, followed by TRAPPIST-1 with 7 planets. And most of them are about 3 or 4 planets or less. Most of them are like 1. But then there's a few like 5s and 6s and things like that. So, but we're at the top with 8.
Huh.
So,
I didn't realize the average was that small.
Yeah, it is. So we can get into some of the searches for life if you want, kind of towards the end, but I'm going to finish off with some solutions to the problem. So the rarity issue comes to this point. Either life is so rare or non-existent, or intelligence itself is rare or non-existent, or there's been extinction events. So, like, we've been through how many extinction events in Earth's history? Like 4 or 7?
At least one.
2019. Oh, no. So, the advancement, can you stop? Hannah is messing with my zipper and it's making a
on his backpack
sound like right there.
It's a good zipper. Yeah.
Anyway, advancement could be a problem, and they haven't developed advanced technology, or it's the nature of intelligent life to destroy itself or other civilizations. And they may only search for life for a brief amount of time before just kind of giving up, or only broadcasting their signals for a short amount of time, which I'm going to get into in a little bit. The highest intelligent... What? Oh my gosh. I guess this conversation isn't interesting enough and it needs a fidget toy.
Well, it's better for me to hold this fidget toy than to mess with the zipper on your backpack because this doesn't make noise.
So, or the intelligent life is just incomprehensible to us. So the number one thing for like the signals, right, is we broadcast far less on radio signals now than we used to.
Yeah.
Right. So it used to be the only communication we had was, or well, not the only, but the biggest form of communication was radio. And now you've got satellites, you've got cable, you've got Wi-Fi, you've got all of this stuff that all puts signals out there.
Right.
All of those signals travel actually through space. They get weaker over time. But with the right technology, you'd be able to pick those up. So we've actually sent out radio signals into space, like they broadcast like certain shows and stuff. And they've also said, there's been scientists I've seen on documentaries that say like, well, actually the nearest planet that we've sent stuff to is like, I think the nearest planet, it's like 4 light years or something. So they're still listening to like, they haven't even...
The nearest planet outside of our solar system?
Nearest planet outside of our star system, yeah.
Okay.
Is like 4 light years away. And they are like, haven't even learned about Doja Cat yet. So...
Wait, that doesn't sound... The nearest planet outside of our solar system is 4 light years.
4 light years. I think that's right. It's either 4 or 40, but I believe it's 4 light years. Because I watched a video about that today, I believe. So okay. I could be wrong, but
okay.
What? Am I right?
No, I was just trying to like picture that amount. Oh. It's just hard to.
Are you looking
modify.
It up?
No.
Okay. Well, the misinformation on Shane episode, usual. Anyway, the intelligent life could also just be incomprehensible to us, as in like. We communicate on Wi-Fi signals right now. Like if I text you a message, it was on Wi-Fi signal. Or like 5G or whatever. which would be like a form of like a radio wave. I don't really know how they work, but they're like in the gigahertz of radio waves. So, it's possible that there's an alien race out there who developed a form of communication that's not based on any of that. So why would they ever develop the tools to detect a Wi-Fi signal or a radio signal?
Yeah.
And why would we ever like be able to develop a technology that would send a signal out that's their technologies, right? So it could just be totally different. But anyway, there could be some sociological issues. Colonization might not be the norm for alien life. Like throughout human history, I've made the joke here before, but like throughout all of human history, if you come across another country, you just go to war, and whoever wins, like puts their church there. Like that's like, so that just might not be the thing in alien culture. Like they might have developed differently, or there might not be like a call it like a war gene or something. I don't know, but or they might have only settled a part of their star system. So like if we go to Mars, that might just be like what they're doing. They haven't ventured outside of their stars yet. They might isolate themselves on purpose, or they might not even live on planets at all. Like if they are traveling through space, the distances in space are so far. The video that I saw today was Neil deGrasse Tyson saying that the closest planet that we know of is, I think, and I could be wrong, I think it's Proxima Centauri b is where it is, and it's 4 light years away. And if we took the fastest spacecraft that we have and we flew it there, it would take 70,000 years to get there.
Oh my goodness. So
that's like, light year is such a immense distance to think about, because it's the distance that it would take light 1 year to travel to.
Right. That's why I got stuck on the 4 light years a second ago. I was trying to think about how far that would be.
So light, like everybody kind of knows the fact that like it takes 8 minutes for light to get here from the sun.
Right.
So if the sun just disappeared, we wouldn't know about it for another 8 minutes. Well, it takes the light from the sun a year to get to Proxima Centauri b. So the fastest thing that we have, if we flew it there, it would take 70,000 years. So
I remember reading something in a book one time about like light years like that, and how kind of what you said, if the sun went extinct, if the sun died, we wouldn't know for 8 minutes. And like a lot of the stars that we see are already dead, but it takes the light so long to get here, we don't know yet. And so if in theory, if you could get far enough away from Earth, like if you could teleport far enough away and you could look back at the Earth, then you could see dinosaurs walking around. Because if you got on the other side of like that light that had traveled,
if you
could see back in time.
If you could do a wormhole.
Yeah.
To like, 400 million years ago, 65 million years ago, or whatever it was, then you would be able to, and you got a telescope big enough, you'd be able to see.
That's pretty crazy. You could look back and see like cavemen.
Did you also know that the speed that you're traveling has something to do with how slow or fast time moves, and so does gravity?
Yeah, there's something about that in Interstellar.
So this is going on a tangent, but I used to be just like super into astronomy when like we were in high school. You remember that? We had like the astronomy club and stuff, and research pulsars and things like that.
Yeah.
As I'm long removed from that, so I'm a little fuzzy on these numbers, but there was something that I remember reading from Michio Kaku, who's an astrophysicist developing string theory right now. And he's one of the guys who put together this thing where if you could, or at least this is where I was introduced to it, if you could go to a black hole and you went at 99.9% the speed of light for 2 weeks, and then you came back home, the amount of gravity there at the horizon of a black hole and the speed that you're going at would dilate your time. It would be like 2 weeks would be like, I think it's like 20 years or 200 years on Earth.
Yeah.
So and you would only age like 2 weeks, basically.
That's pretty
Kind of
crazy.
wild. So there's actually like twins. One of them's an astronaut, and I think this is a true story. Or this might just be like an anecdote, but I kind of hope it's true. There's like twin boys, and one of them has been in space on the space station.
Yeah.
And I think the thing was that he was older than his brother, but because the space station travels at like 17,000 miles an hour, and he's done a few trips there, that he has now gone so fast and slowed down his time the couple of minutes that now he's technically would be younger than his twin brother, even though he was the older one.
Man,
Or
how do people figure
vice
stuff
versa.
like this out? That's crazy.
Math.
Have you seen Interstellar?
Maybe. I want to
That's
say
a
I
big
have
part
a long time ago.
Big plot event in that movie.
I'm going to plug another movie is Gravity.
With Sandra Bullock?
With Sandra Bullock and George Clooney.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Such a good movie.
Very good.
And this, like, and at the time that this movie came out, I was number one, very interested in astronomy and astrophysics and space, and also interested in like sound design and stuff, which I guess we figured out which one that I ended up doing. The sound design in that movie is so good. So good. Anyway, back on track. There's an economic issue. Might just be too expensive, or there's lack of resources to travel space for aliens.
Fair enough.
It might be too hard to discover. We haven't listened for long enough. Really, like the amount of time that we've been listening for signals is very microscopic in the space amount of time that has existed, right?
Yeah.
So, or we haven't listened to the right channel, so to speak. So like I said, the signals that they're putting out might be totally foreign to what we've ever developed, or too advanced. So like, does anybody listen to telegraph cables anymore? No.
Yeah, what if they're communicating on that?
Well, not necessarily that, but I'm saying like our 5G or whatever that everybody's worried about getting like satanic brainwaves from or whatever, like whatever the conspiracy is on that now. That might be like their version of telegraph.
Yeah, like why do we expect the aliens to be using the same communication technology that we're using? The
Just
odds of that are pretty
all we
low.
know. It's
Right.
the same thing of like, well, alien life might be totally incomprehensible to us. Like our version of life, everything here has carbon, and it has to have carbon to be a biological life form.
Right.
They might be like iron people. Like,
yeah, we just kind of make a lot of assumptions about what aliens are like because it's, like you said, all that we know.
Yeah. There's also the possibility that nobody wants to be the first to communicate. Maybe it's too dangerous because, like, if there are other civilizations and some of them are violent, then somebody else might catch on to their communication and go attack them.
Yeah.
So maybe we're being deliberately avoided or isolated, hence the zoo theory. So are there any of those that you really want to get into and like dive slightly deeper? Because I have this tab pulled up with a lot of these.
Just go ahead, whatever you want to focus on. They're all interesting.
Well, so I guess the rarity of it is like that Drake equation. Like you have to have the habitable zone. Like we have, they call it the Goldilocks zone, where we're close enough to the sun where we can maintain the water on Earth. And it doesn't freeze for forever, and it doesn't get evaporated by the sun. We're in the perfect spot. And so we look, because this is what we know of having carbon life forms, they need water, and you have to have carbon. So the two things that people look for when they're looking at exoplanets, which are planets outside of our star system, I guess, is they look for the radio signal of carbon, and they look for water, and they look for the if you can find water, then you would know that it's this certain distance away from that particular star that it can maintain water. I guess the issue with that is like, well, okay, so the solution to the Fermi Paradox is kind of, I guess, a few different ways you can answer that. Is like two of the scariest things that you could possibly say is that either we're the first ever to be here and have an intelligent, so to speak, species, or we're the last or they know about us and they're intentionally not saying that they know about us.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if we're completely alone, like the people always boil this down to like, it's scary both ways. Either we're completely alone in the entire universe as far as we know, or we're not.
Right.
So it's like if you're in the woods in the middle of the night and you can't see anything, and you know that there should be animals in the woods, but you don't hear anything, then either that means you're completely alone, which is scary, or there's something there that's keeping everything quiet.
Which is scary.
So, yeah. I don't know. What do you think about aliens?
So I mean, let me start this with, I don't know anything about anything, but
We already, hey, the audience knows that about both of us. So
I don't know anything. We just like to talk.
Yeah.
But I mean, the universe is infinite.
Yes.
It goes on forever and ever and ever.
Well,
Space is infinite. It doesn't end.
Technically, apparently not.
It has to be infinite because you get to the end of it. What's on the other side? More space.
God is on the other side.
Right. And
So,
he's
like,
also infinite.
Have you ever heard of like I found this out like very oddly when I was into like the astrophysics stuff that we were doing, is that like space is more like a container than anything else.
But what's on the other side of the container?
We don't know.
Empty space.
Either other universes that are out there.
More space.
They think of like the multiverse as like bubbles, and there's a bunch of these bubbles always coming in and out of existence all the time. And so you think about it that way, but also like as far as the Big Bang is concerned, it's not really like there wasn't like a point of light or whatever, a point of material in space that blew up into everything that we know now, and space has just always been there. Space itself was constricted into this little teeny dot. And whatever was outside of that, call it God, said, I need there to be...
Expand.
Yeah. And the entire universe, all at once, space included, expanded extremely rapidly. And that's what... So it's more... This physicist thing, this people are way smarter than I am, more accurate instead of saying the Big Bang to say the big everywhere stretch.
Yeah.
And so and that's where you get the background radiation, because everything was everywhere all at once. So all of space was confined to the same spot that all the material that we know of was there, at the very pinhead of a little light.
That's not really what I was saying, though, what I was talking about. I was just saying, like, our space now, we have all this space.
Yes.
So much space. So infinite space, infinite possibilities. There's probably out there somewhere, likely, some type of life. But I kind of think what you were saying earlier, like either they're just too far away.
Yeah.
Like they can't get to us and we can't get to them just because they're so far away. Or they like just don't have the technologies to get here, kind of like we don't have the technologies to get to them.
Yeah.
But I do think there's probably something out there somewhere, because there's infinite space, infinite possibilities.
Yeah.
And God's powers are infinite. Like,
yeah. So
probably, and I'm not saying there's like life like us, like humans. I don't think there's people, but there's probably something that would be considered living out there somewhere.
Yeah. I just I don't know. I wonder if you can get to like the end of where space is. You'd have to go faster than what it expands. Right.
Mm-hmm. But then once you get to the end, what's on the other side of that? That's not something really that our like human minds can even comprehend, because
that's the thing, is like it's not
human minds, like
everything
is finite, everything's concrete, but the expansion of space is not.
Well, the expansion of space is infinite.
So we can't
the actual,
even really comprehend that.
I guess the edge of that, at least the way the math understands it, is there's got to be an end somewhere if you go at faster than the rate of it has ever expanded ever.
But what's on the other side of the end?
Heaven?
Right. Yeah, and so
I mean, it has
heaven
to be
would be
like
infinite.
something religious speaking, but there's this is going to be like a funny take from actually getting this from like a Lil Dicky song, because
Okay.
he has that song Pillow Talk or Pillow Talking or something like that,
Okay.
where it kind of goes this narrative where like he had like a one night stand with his girl, but they're not compatible at all, and he's like, what do you think about aliens? And she's like, oh, I don't believe in aliens because I'm religious. And he's like, okay, but even if you're religious, you think that God's infinite in power, right? So Earth could just be like a small side project for
Yeah.
God. And it's like, yeah, so there might be, I don't know if there's like people around, but there could definitely be like an entire planet full of birds.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I
Dinosaurs.
don't necessarily think there's another Earth with humans on it, but
Yeah.
like God can do anything. So there's probably, I'm sure there's probably just life out there just for the fun of it, just because he felt like making it, maybe.
This is like where we come into like a weird scientific question where like, from like a extremely religious point of view,
Yeah.
where like, because
Like we like science stuff. We're interested in it, but we also believe in God.
yeah.
And those two don't have to be mutually exclusive. That drives me crazy when people act like you can't believe and trust in science and also be religious. They're not exclusive. You can do both, you know?
Yeah.
That drives me nuts when people are like, it's one or the other. It's not. You can do both.
So have you heard the argument that the universe is so extremely well tuned for the existence of life that there would have had to have been a creator?
Well, I mean, like, I just believe that anyway.
Well, yeah, but there's like some math behind it. But then if you actually dig into the numbers, it's like, okay, well, the numbers that you're involving are so astronomically huge that they're like, if you change the constant of gravity by a fraction of a percent, then it's like, well, you've changed it by an order of magnitude, by a fraction of a percent, because that the numbers involved in this are so big. But also, it's like, well, it would appear that it was set up that way.
Yeah.
At least from like all of human history, that people have ever been conscious, and they're like, hey, wait a second. Rome wasn't built in a day. And so, but yeah, I don't know. I think and there's also the memes of like the aliens come to Earth and the atheists are like, see, we told you that God's not real. And the aliens are like, we actually came to tell you about our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
I would love that.
So,
I would love that.
Like,
that'd be so funny.
And or like, have you seen I think it's a video where it's like the guy is pretending to be an alien, and he's like, oh, you guys are waiting on the second return of Christ? He's like, oh, he comes every year. And they're like, he comes every year for you guys? Like, yeah, because he was such a nice guy. We all loved him, and we gave him, every year he comes back, and we give him chocolate. We give him the best chocolates, all the best food, and put him in the best hotel. And he's like, why? What did you guys do the first time he came?
Oh my gosh.
Like, nothing. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. Do you have any other thoughts on Fermi Paradox? Just more so, it's like,
it's interesting.
It's like if the universe is infinite as far as we can tell, because like there's like clearly some kind of a limit to the amount of like the material that has expanded throughout the universe. It's got to come to an end somewhere there. But that could be outside of the actual observable limits of like, it's okay. So we're actually still like moving, right?
Yeah.
So there are things that are red shifted and there are things that are blue shifted. And so in like the light spectrums, so if they're red shifted, then the light is actually further away or moving further away. So we can tell that these things are going further away from us and these things are coming closer. So if that's true, then there's got to be some things that have expanded so far and so fast that we're never going to see those things because we're moving away at faster than what the light can reach us at.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's the possibility that there could be civilizations on the other side of that we would never know about ever. We wouldn't even know that the stars existed, that they could be around, because it's physically impossible for us to even observe that.
Yeah.
But even to get to like the closest place, we would need a wormhole.
Right.
So it's, yeah. Anyway. Anything else?
No, I think that was good.
I keep getting on tangents because I like science and I like the universe.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's fun to talk about that stuff because, I mean, ultimately, we really don't know, but it's fun to say what we believe, say what we think.
I know. I'll say it for a fact. I'll tell people all the time I know this for a fact.
Okay, get us some proof.
Shoot. We do need to do like an alien episode soon. There are those guys that have like whistleblown recently, like David Fravor, and there's that one guy that came out of Air Force Intelligence, I think it was, where he's been going to Congress and saying that they've found crafts that we don't know where they came from, and there's biological material in them. That's the word he uses, is there are biologics in them. And it's like, okay, well, hey man, what does that mean?
Yeah, can you be more specific?
If it was humans, then you would assume that you would say humans, right? Unless they think that it's a homeland security threat, where it's like, if it's the Russians or the Chinese, who are like our two bigger enemies that everybody's worried about right now, then maybe it's them, and you know what I'm saying? Like, they don't want to say because they don't want the Chinese to know that we shot down one of their stupid planes. and then we're going to go to war with them or whatever. But also, if it's aliens, they wouldn't want to say that either. So,
wasn't there something during COVID of how the government like admitted to there being aliens and it got kind of glossed over? I didn't really.
Well, that was, they've never admitted to there being like actual aliens.
Or like it was UFOs or something.
Yeah, so the people said it's aliens, but they actually said there are crafts that are coming to us, and we do not know where they came from or what they are or how they operate. That's what David Fravor was, because they have the gimbal footage where it came out of their actual, I think it's an F-35 fighter plane, where they have this footage where it like disappears almost, it seems like, or it accelerates at incredible speeds and does like right angle turns that they don't.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? We don't know how this works, and the technology behind that is not something that America has produced yet. And America has always been at the very forefront of being able to produce new technology. So if now that suddenly we're extremely worried about it. But anyway, that's pretty much it. I don't have much else to say.
Good episode. Good talk.
Unless you would like for me to spend another 20 minutes mansplaining space to you.
No. I'll pass. But I appreciate the offer.
No problem, dog.
Good job.
We're recording on my tablet right now. Whew. Oh, man.
Did you almost delete everything?
So I closed the little keyboard on my tablet on accident, and it turned my screen off and like locked it, and I was like, oh man, we just lost. This is supposed to be like a mini that we've been banking up. We've been going for like over an hour. So anyway.
Oh my gosh. We've never done an actual mini. We always say, this is going to be a mini. And it's a full-length episode every single time.
I just like to talk.
It's fine.
I haven't taken a single sip of my coffee. I've just been blabbing this whole time.
Good thing it's in a Yeti. It'll still be hot.
Ready for this?
Don't slurp it in the mic.
It's too hot.
Yep. It'll stay hot forever.
Whoa, you want to fix your fire alarm? Thanks for listening. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Country Roads Creep. Send us messages, leave us comments. Tell us what you want to hear in the future. And if we got any space facts wrong, we don't want to hear about it. Thanks for listening. And be safe. Leave us 5 stars and be safe driving home. Buckle your seatbelts. Watch out for the knot deer.
Bye.
Bye.